was 16 years old, standing at the kitchen counter with my mom, full of life and excitement for my future, driven by my deepest dream. But I was about to be crushed by the person I loved most. My dream was to be the first in my family to graduate high school and go to college. And why this mattered so much, I saw it as the ticket out of a life of struggle, but also it was my chance to prove what people like us were capable of. Deeper than that, I wanted to help my family, I wanted to help my mom, and even deeper was a soul-deep calling to transform the generational wounds that had commanded the women before me to be small, to fall in line, to obey. But I wasn't born to be small. I was born to play big, despite the fact that didn't fit the narrative that I had grown up with. So how did I do it? How did I rewrite my story? Well, to get that answer, we have got to rewind the mixtape back to my childhood, which takes us to rural Wisconsin, surrounded by cows, cornfields, and dial-up internet. And growing up, my parents worked hard, but we struggled. And I remember my mom often being stressed and worrying. I saw all the ways that she minimized herself and didn't believe in herself. And I decided that I was responsible for helping her to believe in herself. This was a decision I made early in life. And I have a distinct memory of being 6 years old, going with her to the family doctor. And for whatever reason, on this day when the doctor entered the room, her mood shifted from her usual state of worry, and she became a bit lighter. And I took note. And I wanted to know this doctor's secret to putting a smile on my mom's face. So I asked him, "Hey, how did you become a doctor?" "Well, I worked hard and went to college." Now, by this point in life, I understood that everything had a cost. So naturally, my next question was, "And did you have to pay for that?" Well, I graduated as top of my class as a valedictorian, and I got scholarships to help pay for school. In that moment, my 6-year-old self knew her mission. I too someday would be valedictorian, I'd go to college, and somehow this would solve my family's problems. And growing up, this goal became a lifeline for me, and I never stopped believing I could do it. Until that day at 16 years old at the kitchen counter when I was excitedly telling my mom all my plans for college, and I saw that familiar look of fear and worry wash over her face. She stopped me and said, "Oh, Amber, people like us don't go to college." People like us. That moment crushed me because I had been working my whole life to get to college to make things better for my family. But I also understood her fear. Up until that moment, nobody in my family, people like us, we didn't go to college. We didn't even graduate high school. People like us struggled to see a future that looked different than how we'd been raised. And I could have bought into that belief for myself, or I could choose to rewrite the story of what people like us were capable of. So that's what I did. 2 years later, I did graduate as valedictorian and go to college, and I stood on that stage in front of my small farming community, rocking my 7-inch red glittery platform heels. And that day, there was no one prouder than my parents, especially my mom. This goal of education, it mattered so much, not just because I believe education is important, but because of the bigger picture of what this represented for my family. Considering my mom's upbringing, it was faced with trauma. She experienced sexual abuse, generational alcoholism. With limited options, at 15 years old, she ran away from home and became a young single mother. She grew up as an unsupported girl who had become an unsupported woman and an unsupported mother, who wasn't given the tools to believe in herself or see her worth. And so I would work my whole life to show her how worthy she was. These experiences we have in childhood, they shape us for the rest of our lives. And my experience with my mom, it became my biggest catalyst, my deepest driver. See, pain pushes us until vision pulls. And that pain of wanting things to be better for my mom, that pain pushed me. It pushed me to strive harder, to work harder, to fight to earn the worthiness for all of us. That pain pushed me to the point of exhaustion until I finally realized that if I really wanted to heal my mom, I first had to heal myself. Now, maybe your story is different, but let me ask you, who here has ever been told you couldn't do something that you believed in? Right? I know I'm not alone in this. Many of us relate to this feeling of being the underdog in some way, and it's so difficult to step into your authenticity when it's different than everything around you. When I made the choice to go to college, despite the narrative that people like us didn't do that, it was one of many steps of stepping into my true path. So how did I do it, and how can you do it? There were 3 main steps that helped me in my journey. The first, you've got to learn how to listen internally to those soul nudges that call you toward your true destiny. And then we've got to have courage and be brave to face and transform the limiting beliefs and fears that hold you back. Only this is when you can shift from pushing from the pain and let the vision start pulling you. This is when you shift from surviving and actually start thriving. Finally, you step into your authentic identity when you take consistent actions that are in alignment with what you feel called toward, not based on what someone else is telling you to do. This is what creating an authentic identity requires. And the more I did this in life, something profound happened. My mother, who had grown up believing in the limits that had been handed down to her through generations, she started to believe in new possibilities too. She may have felt small most of her life, but she had raised a daughter who refused to be. And I had finally learned that if I really wanted to help other people in life, all I had to do was trust myself and step into my own path. That was my only true responsibility. And years later, when I published my book, Unleashed, which teaches about stepping out of limiting beliefs and into your true authenticity, my mom read it and she said to me, "Amber, where were the women like you that I needed when I was growing up?" Right here, Mom, I'm right here. I rewrote the story, and so can you, because that's what people like us do.